Hey, I'm Mark. Let's go, let's go. So much time, so little to do. Hey, now what? You know, it took Thomas Edison 1,000 times to perfect the light bulb. Whatever's firing your brain is like attempt number 643. All right, get that door closed. Why? Because I'm a history teacher and I'm going rogue. Drew Bledsoe had a pretty good career as quarterback for the New England Patriots. He was the #1 overall pick in the 1993 NFL Draft out of Washington State, where he had previously set all kinds of school and Pac-10 conference records. He led the Patriots out of hard times into 4 postseasons and an appearance in Super Bowl 31. Then he got hurt, and he was replaced by a lightly regarded 6th-round draft pick from the University of Michigan, a guy named Brady. Talk about a late bloomer. Tom Brady is, statistically, the greatest player in NFL history. And sadly, Drew Bledsoe's name has been lost to history. That's like the movie Damnation Alley. And like Tom Brady, the movie that replaced it, and the sequels that followed, and the action figures, and the amusement park rides made it the greatest movie franchise in history. Let's find out how one of Hollywood's greatest movies almost never made it to the big screen. The substitute for Damnation Alley. Let's go rogue. Based on a book by Roger Zelazny, 20th Century Fox began production of Damnation Alley in 1976, expecting it to be the epic sci-fi film of the year. Producer Jack Smythe had just come off of success with 2 huge films, Airport 75 and Midway. Jan Michael Vincent and George Peppard, Hannibal from the original A-Team, co-starred as 2 Air Force officers manning a missile station when the Soviets launch a nuclear attack on the United States. Casey's eyes are rolling in the control room. Yes, more nuclear war. Well, when the Soviets launch a nuclear attack on the United States, they turn their keys, then watch with other servicemen in the safety of their concrete and steel reinforced station as the rest of the United States is destroyed by the attack. After the attack, with nothing else to do, the surviving servicemen spend their time hanging out at the station, reading old Playboy magazines and smoking, until one day, when a cigarette falls onto a stack of Playboys and ignites an explosion. That destroys the station. That's what you get, you preverts. Fortunately, Vincent, Peppard, and 2 others survive. They commandeer 2 landmasters, 12-wheeled, high-powered, all-terrain vehicles that master the land. They've heard radio signals from Albany, New York, and the co-stars set out on a voyage across the post-apocalyptic United States. The 4 survivors become 3 when one of the landmasters is destroyed in a storm. In Las Vegas, they play some slots, then pick up a woman and a boy that have survived. Salt Lake City is overridden by giant Mormon crickets. Not Mormon crickets? Cockroaches? Oh, it would have been so much cooler if it was Mormon crickets. And then the seagulls. Yeah, but everybody knows that the only real survivors of nuclear war are cockroaches and Twinkies. The character played by Paul Winfield is killed and we assume left to be eaten by the cockroaches. Just a side note, Paul Winfield's an African-American actor. 70s, man. Where's Shaft when you need him? Shaft? You're damn right. After surviving a gang of post-apocalyptic rednecks, the Landmaster arrives in Detroit, needing a drive shaft. Not that there aren't car parts in any other major city in the United States, but they gotta go to Detroit. And while they're there, why weren't the trucks and the drive shafts melted down like would actually happen in a 10,000-degree nuclear blast? Anyway, another storm strikes the team, accompanied by a tsunami. Peppard, Hannibal, puts the Landmaster into amphibious mode, and they survive. They make it to Albany, and Jan Michael Vincent rides into town on his motorcycle on a highway, cutting through terrain that looks more like the highway my family used to drive from Thousand Oaks to Malibu. Not Albany, New York. Roll credits. So production ends up being plagued by problems. After a rather convincing attack scene with a half-robotic, half-human, disembodied voice ticking off each American city struck by a nuclear missile, the production problems started. Some of them actually left in the film. In one of the first scenes, post-apocalypse, Jan Michael Vincent has to negotiate his motorcycle through a flock, what do you call a group of scorpions? Bed? A bed of scorpions? Really? That's dumb. a bed of giant scorpions. The original scorpion props didn't work, so the producers used footage of real scorpions blue screened into the film. The result was unconvincing. In fact, it was bad. And that set the stage for the rest of the film and its demise. In the cockroach scene in the SLC, the producers used a few Madagascar hissing cockroaches and many more rubber cockroaches. In some places, the viewer can see cockroaches on mats being pulled by a string. When Paul Winfield is being eaten by the cockroaches, he seeks shelter in a car next to a skeleton, assumed to be a person that had been previously picked clean by the bugs. I'm not sure where the bugs got the bleach, though. It's pretty clear that the skeleton is white plastic, like you'd see standing in the corner of your high school science class. Perhaps this is why Spielberg used real skeletons and poltergeists in that scene with Jo Beth Williams. Jo Beth Williams! Now a 3-time mention in HTGR. I need to send her another letter from myself. Maybe along with a picture this time. The most difficult effect in Damnation Alley was the post-apocalyptic sky, red with bands of darker or lighter red piercing through. This had to be done to the entire sky in most of the film, 80% of its 91-minute runtime. These changes forced 20th Century Fox to push the release of Damnation Alley back to October and force them to release another sci-fi film at the start of the summer of 1977, a film in which they had far less confidence. Something that was supposed to simply fill the void. This movie was produced by a lightly regarded producer named George Lucas and starred a cast of young unknowns, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford. That movie was Star Wars. Seems strange to say that Star Wars was a stand-in for something else called Damnation Alley. 20th Century Fox was hoping to just mark time with Star Wars, while production could finish on Damnation Alley. And yet, as it turned out, Star Wars, the substitute movie, literally saved the struggling studio. Filmed on an $11 million budget, Star Wars' original box office in the summer of 1977 was $775 million. The word blockbuster was first used to describe Star Wars as people waited in lines, snaking around city blocks just to buy tickets, while production continued on Damnation Alley, with its blue-screen scorpions, rubber cockroaches being pulled on mats, and the red sky of post-apocalyptic America. People were jamming theaters, watching Darth Vader and Han and Luke and Leia. Beyond the movie, my classmates in my 4th grade class at Ivanhoe Elementary School started showing off their Star Wars action figures. And I might say, the 6-inch tall Princess Leia was just as beautiful as the 5'9" real thing. Was that too weird? All right. Well, it didn't matter, because my folks wouldn't let me spend money on Star Wars action figures. I think they peeked into the future and didn't want me to see their future 50-year-old son dressing like Han Solo and going to cosplay conventions. Although I've been told, Han Solo. There were no Jan Michael Vincent or George Papard action figures, or Paul Winfield beaten eaten by cockroaches action figures. Nope. Damnation Alley was finally released on October 21, 1977, but didn't generate enough revenue to stay in the theaters. It was pulled after only a few weeks. Filmed on an $8 million budget, the movie only made back $4 million. That is $771 million less than its substitute. But let's put this into its historical perspective. Even with the production issues and the delay in its release, the movie should have performed well. Zelazny wrote an intriguing story, Jack Smite was no slouch as a producer, and Vincent and Papard were better than average actors, more well-known at the time than Hamill, Ford, and Fisher. And the Landmaster, let's go! Call Ford Motor Company to start building those. 2 miles to the gallon, 12-wheel drive, sleeps 5 comfortably, amphibious mode. Forget the Hummer, give me one of those. But the American public's taste for disaster movies had peaked. Irwin Allen scored big with Airport, and then The Poseidon Adventure, and then The Towering Inferno. Throw in The Destruction of L.A. and Earthquake, and add Smite's Airport 75 to the list, and the movie studios of the early 1970s were raking in millions of dollars. But disaster movies had run their course. By 1976, life in America was no longer disaster. The Vietnam War was over. Nixon had resigned over the Watergate scandal. The gas crisis of the early 70s had ended. People were tired of mass destruction like nuclear apocalypses. Let's be done with it. Now America was celebrating its bicentennial, 200 years, and had elected a new president, Jimmy Carter, who ended the 8-year reign of seemingly corrupt Republican presidents. What was the American public longing for? This guy. No, this guy. Let's have a story about a guy that comes from the mean streets of Philly, then goes on to survive 15 pounds with the world champion. Rocky, Rocky, Rocky. Best Picture in 1976. Star Wars is the exact same story. Well, with some changes. Lightsabers instead of gloves. Darth Vader instead of Apollo Creed. Han Solo instead of Polly. Obi-Wan instead of Mick. You're gonna eat lightning and you're gonna crap thunder. And Leia instead of Adrian. Yo, Adrian! Man, that's a video unto itself. Star Wars, man. A story of hope. A new hope that Americans were ready for after the 1970s that were perceived as somewhat hopeless. So 20th Century Fox blows it with Damnation Alley, but has the freaking good luck to replace it with Star Wars. I wish I was that lucky. Hey, thanks for coming by. I hope you had fun, helping me relive my childhood. Comment, like, subscribe, and share this with your friends on whatever platform you use. I want to thank my producer, Casey Moulton, and Nicole on the teleprompter. I'd also like to thank Mr. Brent Allen for letting me borrow his studio up here on the campus of Columbia High School. I had fun, but I won't quit my day job. Next time you see Star Wars on TV, or when you go see Star Wars Episode 14, oh, just 9? Star Wars Episode 9, well, remember me. I'm Mark Haggard, I'm a history teacher, and I'm going rogue.